So I played the Marvel Rivals Alpha for over 60 hours, played every single character in all of the modes. We're talking tons of quick play matches, tons of competitive matches, solo queues, and group queues, and today I'm going over my final tier list rankings based on my experiences in game, coupled with what was represented by the best players in the Dawn of Legends tournament. My name's Nexus and I got you covered with everything about Marvel Rivals. Let's get into it. We're gonna start off with the Vanguard characters, and there's two that really just dominate. Starting us off with S tier is Groot. His space-taking potential with wooden walls is incredible and fills both defensive and offensive needs. He can place walls to block openings, buying time for cart pushes, or use this to split up players, leaving them as easy picks. He's durable with an amazing ult that pulls enemy players in, deals damage, and pretty much allows for ult combos with your team that can wipe out enemy players, secure a cart, or clear a point. And that places him right into our S tier. Right behind Groot, we have Doctor Strange with the ability to use his shield to entry with his team, or fly up and block ults. And then he has his own ult, Eye of Agamotto, that leaves affected enemies stunned and easy targets for a massive team wipe. Doctor Strange also brings the ability to portal his team, which can make for clutch plays like making entry to points much easier or lead to game-winning flanks or stalls. Both Groot and Doctor Strange were heavily represented by the top teams in the Dawn of Legends tournament and shows how much of a staple they were in the success of these teams. A good Groot and Doctor Strange will definitely make their presence known. Next, we have Magneto in A tier. Magneto has some pretty good defensives, such as a barrier that blocks all ranged attacks, including ults, and a shield for teammates, but unfortunately they don't last very long, which doesn't allow him to stay safely engaged as much as Doctor Strange and Groot. His offensive potential is solid with ranged attacks, but his A tier placement is also contingent on having the Scarlet Witch team-up ability, Metallic Fusion. This attack becomes his highest damage output and makes Magneto much more deadly than without it. His ultimate is pretty solid. It can take out the likes of Luna and the Punisher on direct hits, making it a decent counter, but it can be really difficult to land and allows for players to react because it requires a longer wind-up to release for max damage. Behind Magneto, we've got the Hulk, who's a menace to the backline with the ability to leap and harass lower health enemies, and he has a way to incapacitate enemy players that can be useful, like stopping an ult or knock a flying enemy out of the air. But compared to the other Vanguards, he doesn't have a way to block angles and has to get in and out of the fight to micromanage his Hulk forms, and his own ultimate is just a single target attack sequence that doesn't necessarily help combo with his team. Overall though, Magneto and Hulk are still very capable Vanguard characters. In good hands will be a force to reckon with and typically shine more as secondary off-takes. Lastly, we have Penny Parker coming in at B tier, and this is mostly due to where her strengths and weaknesses lie. Penny Parker is an absolute monster in defending points, entry points, or paths with her mine drones, webs, and wrap stun. Enemies pushing through this will definitely be punished, and it makes her an excellent defender, but when the roles are reversed and she has to engage for offensive modes, she just doesn't bring as much to the table like barriers, walls, or shields to take space. She's great at pushing into enemies during her ultimate, but if her team doesn't follow up during this time, she can find herself left solo or without much to claim victory for after the ultimate ends, which places her behind the well-rounded tanks before her. Moving on, we've got Hela starting off our S tier duelist category, and there's just no denying how strong Hela is. Her left click 2 shots most squishy characters in the game, and she can do this with really fast attack speed and at pretty long distances. She can get easy picks and racks up tons of kills. Her mobility allows her to push for better angles and verticality, and her ultimate can take out enemy teams caught out in the open without any healing CDs. So right now she takes our #1 spot. But wait, there's another who likes to punish the enemy team. The Punisher is also coming in at S tier with his versatility and raw firepower. Being able to hit scan ranged or flying targets while also swapping to a shotgun to shred tanks or punish divers like Spider-Man and Star-Lord make him a staple in most groups. Then we get to his ultimate, where he can literally melt through enemies in the blink of an eye, wiping entire teams and turning the tide of battle. His team up with Rocket makes him even more lethal, and both Hela and Punisher were also heavily represented on all the top teams in the tournament. Rounding out our S tier duelist is the galactic hero himself, Star-Lord. Star-Lord plays as a super mobile harasser with high damage potential that takes out enemies very quickly, while also dodging around, making it difficult for enemy teams to lock him down. He's great at dishing out damage with his team or flanking for picks, and his ultimate, if unchecked, can lead to entire team wipes as well, and a well-played Star-Lord can make it really difficult for teams to deal with. Next, we've got our A-tier duelist, and starting us off is Scarlet Witch. She can be a nuisance for enemy teams if left alone with her ability to basically just channel damage, and she has some decent mobility with being able to temporarily fly and glide, but she's probably most known for her massive team wipes from her ultimate that forces teams to either run away or focus her down. Otherwise, she's taking out the entire team. She's pretty solid for peeling for teammates and holding her own, but not quite at the level of our S-tier duelists. Following Scarlet, we've got Magic, who like Scarlet Witch, can impact games by striking in and out of engagements with small teleport attacks that deal pretty good damage, and she can take out enemy backlines really quickly. Magic also has a deadly ultimate that allows her to ramp up her killing spree if she's able to get kills or deal damage, making her snowball into a terrifying death machine during this ultimate. Moving on to our next set of duelists, while listed in B tier category, they're all still pretty solid picks. They just take a bit more synergy from their team or rely on bad positioning from the enemy team's play to really shine through. First off is Iron Man with one of the strongest ultimates in the game. Invincible Pulse Cannon can destroy group teams and combos extremely well with other ults like Groot or Doctor Strange. Iron Man's attacks deal decent splash damage, but his fly strafing speed is pretty slow, making him a very easy target for all three of the S tier duelists. The same goes for Storm, who has a great ultimate herself that can be used to take out enemy healers and grouped players. Her attacks are pretty solid, but she's exposed in the air against 3 insanely strong DPS that were kind of at the center of the meta in this alpha, making it much more difficult to have sustained impact when compared to other characters. Alright, this guy's a fan favorite and a lot of fun, no doubt, but starting us off in C tier is Spider-Man. His toolkit is really fun to use, and he has the fastest mobility across maps, with the potential to pull off an amazing ultimate combo, but he has two things that work against him for most players. First is his skill cap and difficulty to play well. Most players will be able to pick up any other character and do much better than they would with Spider-Man strictly due to the steep learning curve. The second is that while he's great at swinging through the backline picking off enemies, he also has to periodically leave, grab health, swing around and reposition, all of this adding up to valuable time and overall impact on the match sequence. It's not to say that Spider-Man can't carry, he certainly can, and you've already seen insane players doing this, but for most players in both quick play and competitive settings, it's harder to justify Spider-Man over other options for a duelist spot. Swimming in after Spidey is Namor, and I hate to say it, but Namor is kind of like an inferior Hela. His attacks are similar but deal nothing like Hela's damage, and his attacks are much slower. The damage seems to be shifted to incorporate sea creatures that shoot at enemies, and if unchecked, the summoned creatures can deal decent damage, but they're really easy to take out and rely on proximity outside of Namor's right click to direct them. And lastly, Namor's ult just doesn't deal an insane amount of damage unless the enemy is at the epicenter of the telegraph, which kind of makes it feel underwhelming at times. But if you're playing with the likes of Groot, who can pull into your ult combo guaranteeing a direct epicenter hit, it can work really well. And finally, Black Panther comes into our C tier. This is mostly due to the lackluster ultimate and the need to reliably have charges for his Mark's dash combo. He's kind of like a bruiser assassin, and if you land your abilities, he can deal pretty solid damage to multiple targets. The problem comes when you miss a single mark. Now you're in a waiting game for charges while the enemy team's Punisher just lays insane amount of fire into your team, and again, much like the other C tier duelists, it's a hard case to bring Black Panther over other options. It's not to say there aren't amazing Black Panther plays out there, but his consistency and overall impact is just much less. Alright, now to our strategists. Starting off in A tier is Loki, who can do both healing and damage extremely well. His ability to reverse enemy teams' damage into healing is really good, and he's also able to hold his own against divers by using his clones and the vanish ability. When it comes to ultimates, technically Loki has the best ultimate in the game, because if you pick anyone else for best ultimate, the fact that he can shapeshift to that person and use it allows him to have insane game-changing moments. Need a double Luna ult? You can. Need a double Star-Lord or Punisher ultimate? You can. And clever uses of this can lead to amazingly clutch moments for his team. Right behind Loki, we've got both Rocket and Luna Snow in A tier as well. Since both are great contenders for strategist picks, Rocket has solid healing and can handle healing teammates that are out of line of sight or in vertical areas a bit easier than Luna and Loki because of his healing orbs. And he also has an excellent team-up synergy with the Punisher boosting his fire speed, and since Punisher was pretty much a staple in many groups, bringing Rocket along just makes sense. On top of that, Rocket's respawn beacon is extremely valuable through the entirety of a game, getting teammates back into the action much faster, and if that's not enough, his ultimate is a team-wide damage boost to help secure kills and team wipes. Luna Snow can output insane amounts of healing with a targeted heal, passive heal, and burst healing potential. She also has one of the best ultimates in the game where she can save her team on an enemy all in or use it as a way to push offensively clearing out points. She has a harder time dealing with enemies that dive her, but has some decent damage to fend off, especially if she lands a freeze. And then that leaves us with Mantis, who isn't bad by any means, and she's actually quite strong, but her healing is a bit more mechanically restrictive, making her more difficult to play well. With that said, she's a great pocket healer or damage booster with her moveset and can really amplify her team's damage, while also having the option to her own damage amplification. She has the ability to hold her own with a sleep that can punish enemies out of position and can go under the radar. Overall, while there were definitely a few characters performing extremely high above the others, I've been pretty happy with how most of the characters were tuned for an alpha test. I think with some tweaks to some of them, the range and depths for picks could shape up to be better and allow for more varied comp setups with the addition of more characters. And if you could change anything, let me know what it would be. That does it for our tier list for Alpha 1.0. This is Nexus, and until next time, take care and thanks for watching.